When a known Shedeur Sanders supporter with legitimate NFL connections goes on his podcast and says Deshaun Watson is going to start, and says it with the body language and tone of someone who did not want to believe it, but feels like he has to report what he heard. That is a different kind of moment than the usual media noise surrounding this quarterback competition. LeSean McCoy is not Tony Grussi. He is not Mary Kay Cabot running an agenda she has been building for 2 years. He is not a local Cleveland media personality with a documented pattern of pushing Watson over Shedeur regardless of what the evidence shows. He is a former elite NFL running back with genuine player connections throughout the league, a man who has been publicly supportive of Shedeur Sanders throughout this entire process, and someone whose reputation is not built on manufacturing hot takes for engagement purposes. So when he sits on the Speak Easy podcast and says he is hearing from sources that Watson looks good and is going to start, the people who want to dismiss it as more of the same Shedeur Cleveland media coverage cannot quite do that cleanly. Because this is not the same. The source is different. The motivation is different. And the way McCoy delivered it, with visible hesitation, with his own genuine preference for Shedeur acknowledged openly, with the tone of someone reporting something he found surprising rather than something he was building toward, suggested that what he was sharing came from somewhere real. That does not mean the conclusion is correct. It absolutely does not mean the competition is over before OTAs have even started. And it does not mean the massive qualifiers attached to everything Watson-related at this stage of the process should be ignored. But it means the conversation changed. And it means the story is worth going through carefully rather than dismissing or amplifying without examination. Let's go through all of it. Context matters enormously when evaluating any NFL source claim. And the context around LeSean McCoy makes his comments significantly harder to wave away than the average Watson-positive take coming out of Cleveland media circles. McCoy played in the NFL at a high level for years. He has genuine relationships throughout the league, the kind built through shared locker rooms and professional friendships that survive long after playing careers end. He is not working from the outside looking in the way most media personalities are. He has actual access to people inside professional football organizations through those relationships. More importantly, for evaluating this specific claim, he has been a Shedeur Sanders supporter. That matters because it eliminates the most obvious motivation for manufacturing a Watson-positive narrative. McCoy does not have an agenda to push Watson ahead of Shedeur. He opened the conversation by saying he did not believe it at first. He said he wants Shedeur to play because he is younger and fresher and represents the future. His genuine preference came through clearly alongside the information he was reporting. The most likely pipeline for the information is the Deuce-Stulla connection. Stulla is now the Browns' running back coach. He and McCoy were teammates in Philadelphia. That is a natural ongoing relationship between former teammates who stayed in contact, and it represents exactly the kind of inside-the-building access that produces the specific type of claim McCoy was making. Not a rumor circulating on the internet, not a beat writer's interpretation of a press conference, but something closer to a direct report from someone actually present in those facilities. All of that is why the McCoy comments generated the reaction they did rather than being filed away as more of the same. The source is different enough from the usual narrative actors that the information deserves serious engagement, even if the conclusion it suggests is one that Shedeur supporters are not prepared to accept. Here is what McCoy actually said rather than what the reaction to it says he said. Because those two things are not identical, and the distinction matters for evaluating what this information actually means. He said he has sources and connections in Cleveland, players, people inside the building, and they are telling him Watson looks good and is going to start. He acknowledged his own surprise. He said he did not believe it at first. He said he wants Shedeur to play. He said he thinks the new offense and new coaching staff have Watson looking different than the version Cleveland fans watched struggle previously. That is the claim. Now here are the qualifiers sitting directly underneath it that the media reaction largely skipped over in the rush to generate the narrative. This is all happening in shorts. No pads, no live competitive contact, no defensive coordinator disguising blitzes at full speed, no pass rush collapsing the pocket before a quarterback's mechanics are tested under real pressure, no tackling, no physical reality that would reveal whether Watson's body has actually recovered to the level his reported spring performance suggests. McCoy himself acknowledged this. He said he wants to see it when the live bullets start flying. He said anybody can look good throwing routes on air in shorts. He said Watson's athletic ability looked a little slower the last time he was actually playing meaningful football. He was simultaneously reporting the source information and qualifying it honestly because he understands what an OTA performance in shorts actually measures and what it does not. The media reaction latched onto the Watson looks good and will start portion. The qualifying language from the same person making the same claim got considerably less amplification. And that asymmetry is not accidental. It is the mechanism through which narratives get constructed from genuine information in ways that serve a specific direction regardless of what the full picture showed. Once McCoy's comments circulated, the reaction from national and local media moved quickly and in a predictable direction. Watson is generating internal buzz. The new system is unlocking something. A former elite quarterback is looking like a different player in a different environment. The competition might be more open than the Shedeur momentum suggested. All of that framing emerged from one player's podcast comments based on sources who are observing no contact, no pads OTA equivalent work. And it arrived at a specific moment in the narrative timeline that is worth noting. OTAs had not started. Full squad work had not happened. Live 11-on-11 reps with the complete roster had not occurred. Myles Garrett was not even in the building yet. The evaluation environment that produces meaningful competitive separation had not been established. And yet the narrative of Watson winning the competition was being distributed widely enough that a Shedeur Sanders supporter felt compelled to address it directly on a public platform. The timing tells you something about how this machine operates. The moment genuine evaluation approaches, the moment the work gets real, and the football starts providing honest answers about who can actually execute under pressure, the narrative gets established in advance. Watson is already looking good, already generating buzz, already being framed as the frontrunner, before a single meaningful rep has been taken in a competitive football environment. If Watson is genuinely performing at a level that earns that designation through actual evaluation, that will become visible when the football happens. The data will confirm it. Nobody needs to get ahead of it through source claims and podcast reports about shorts and helmets work. The fact that the narrative is moving this aggressively before the evaluation environment even exists is precisely the pattern that deserves scrutiny rather than acceptance. Here is the part of this story that makes the McCoy moment fit into a larger picture rather than existing as an isolated data point. Bush identified this specific mechanism weeks before it started running and described it with enough precision that what is happening right now looks exactly like what he said would happen. The prediction was specific. Media will deliberately manufacture a Watson versus Shedeur competition narrative. They will use one against the other so that neither gets clean, supportive coverage without the other being weaponized against him. The goal is not to evaluate quarterbacks honestly. The goal is to keep the conversation in a state of perpetual uncertainty where nobody's success can be acknowledged cleanly because the other quarterback is always being positioned as the alternative. Then he identified the Dillon Gabriel template. Gabriel was praised enthusiastically when his narrative was useful as a tool for pushing back against Shedeur. He was elevated as a legitimate starter candidate, as someone the organization should be seriously considering, as evidence that Shedeur was not obviously the answer. The same voices that were building that case are now arguing for Gabriel to be cut or traded, not because their assessment of his talent changed meaningfully, because the tool is no longer needed, and the same mechanism has found a new instrument. Watson is now that instrument. The same voices that were calling for his release 6 months ago, that were describing his play as historically bad and his presence on the roster as an organizational mistake, are now amplifying any positive development around him with an enthusiasm that does not match the continuity of their previous position. They did not always see something in Watson that warranted this treatment. They see something in the current narrative environment that makes Watson positive content useful for the purposes the narrative machine has always been running. Bush named the pattern before it emerged. The receipts are sitting there for anyone willing to look at them. And what is happening right now with the McCoy comments and the media reaction to them is running exactly on the timeline and in exactly the direction he described. Let's state some things directly that keep getting softened in ways that obscure the actual picture. Deshaun Watson has not put on full pads in a competitive football environment yet. Full stop. Whatever he is showing in no-contact spring work is not a football evaluation. It is a spring workout. Every quarterback in the league looks better in shorts and helmets walkthroughs than in live contact situations. The physical reality of professional football, the pass rush arriving before decisions are made, the contact that affects mechanics, the pressure that tests whether a quarterback's processing holds up when survival becomes a competing priority. None of that exists in the environment where Watson is reportedly looking good. The last time Watson played meaningful football, the performance record was historically bad by specific measurable standards, not a rough stretch that can be attributed to circumstances. Documented, statistical evidence of performance at a level that justified the serious organizational questions that followed. That record exists. The camera captured it. It does not get erased by positive spring reports about no-contact work. OTAs have not started. Myles Garrett is not in the building until June. The competitive evaluation environment where real separation happens and real answers get produced is not yet operational. Declaring a starter before that environment exists is not analysis. It is narrative construction in search of a conclusion it has not yet earned. Watson has done the right things throughout this process. He has been in the facility. He has been working. He has been listening to the new coaching staff. He has been in the system and knows the terminology. None of that is being dismissed. But doing the right things in a spring workout environment is the baseline minimum requirement for any professional athlete, not evidence that the competition is already resolved. Anybody can throw passes in shorts. That is not a qualifying statement designed to diminish Watson. It is a factual observation about what the evaluation environment currently measures. When the live bullets start flying, when the real competitive reps happen, when the football starts providing honest answers rather than spring impressions, that is when this information becomes actionable, not before. Here is what keeps getting lost in the Watson narrative cycle. Shedeur Sanders is in those meetings early. He is doing the preparation work. He is not feeding the drama surrounding the competition. He is not responding to every source claim and every media reaction with public comments designed to manage perception. He is doing what he has always done, showing up, doing the work, and letting the football provide the answer. Deion Sanders said it clearly when asked about how Shedeur approaches competition. There is no go eat after with the competition. No friendship energy with the person you are trying to beat out for the starting job. That is not personal animosity. That is competitive professionalism. Shedeur does not get down like that. He competes. He shows up ready to work every single day, and he does not confuse the relationship between competitors with the relationship between friends. That mentality did not develop in a comfortable environment. Deion was specific about this when the silver spoon narrative came up. They went to the hood. They sought out the best competition available regardless of where it was located because that was how you got better. They traveled across the country looking for the best competition they could find because the Sanders approach to development has always been to seek out the highest level available rather than to be comfortable with what was nearby. Shedeur had access to platinum spoons, as Dunn put it, but they did not use them as an excuse to avoid the work. That background produces a specific kind of competitive mentality, one that does not require the doubters to disappear or the narrative to be favorable or the sources to be reporting good things. Competition has always been part of the DNA. This specific moment, a former supporter reporting Watson starting rumors, media amplifying it immediately, the narrative machine running at full speed before OTAs have even started. This is not a new kind of pressure for someone raised in that environment. Shedeur Sanders welcomes competition. He always has. And the version of him that shows up when the live bullets start flying is the version that was forged in exactly the kind of fire that spring narrative cycles cannot replicate. Here is a dimension of this conversation that needs to be stated plainly, because it keeps getting acknowledged indirectly, without being named directly. When the Browns released their schedule, the marketing used Shedeur Sanders' name, not Watson's, not a generic Browns branding exercise. Shedeur Sanders specifically. That decision was not made by a marketing department operating without organizational awareness of the quarterback competition. That decision was made by people who understand what drives commercial engagement for this franchise right now, and who made a specific choice about which quarterback's name generates that engagement. If Watson starts and plays well, that outcome serves the organization from a football perspective. Nobody is arguing otherwise. But the commercial reality of what Shedeur Sanders means for the Cleveland Browns as a business entity is not separable from the football decision, even when the public language tries to separate them. Primetime games get scheduled around marketable quarterbacks. National attention follows names that generate it. Northeast Ohio's appetite for an exciting franchise quarterback is real, and it has been building around a specific person's name throughout this entire process. The media insider who said it most clearly put it simply: if you put Indra Bari and Todd Munkin under truth serum right now, they want Shedeur Sanders to win this competition. Not because they are rooting against Watson, because Shedeur winning it solves every problem simultaneously. The football problem and the commercial problem and the organizational direction problem all get resolved in the same moment. If the quarterback the entire infrastructure was built around proves he can operate it effectively. That is the perfect scenario for this front office. And recognizing that it is the perfect scenario does not mean it is guaranteed or that Watson cannot compete for it honestly. It means the organization's interests and the football evaluation point in the same direction. And when those things align, the narrative claiming otherwise has a very high burden of proof to meet. Tomorrow the evaluation gets real in a way it has not been yet. Full squad work. 11 on 11 reps with the complete roster assembled for the first time. The new offense being installed with all the personnel present simultaneously. The overhauled offensive line working together with the quarterback room in real football situations. This matters enormously for several reasons that go beyond the obvious fact that real competition produces real answers. First, the baseline resets. Watson knowing the previous system and having familiarity with terminology does not create a meaningful advantage when the entire offense is new to everyone simultaneously. A new coach, new language, new concepts, new structural philosophy means every quarterback is learning at the same time. The veteran experience argument gets significantly weaker when the veteran is learning the same new system as the rookie from the same starting point. Second, the physical reality arrives. No more shorts and helmets impressions. No more spring workout reports that describe what a quarterback looks like when nobody is hitting him. The full squad contact environment brings the questions about Watson's physical recovery into territory that actual observation can answer rather than source reports about what people are seeing in controlled settings. Third, the chemistry building that Shedeur has been doing with Kemp and Boston, and the rest of the receiving corps starts happening in a real competitive context. The timing and trust that have been developing through individual work get tested against defenses operating with genuine competitive motivation. That is where chemistry either proves itself or reveals that it was not as developed as the individual sessions suggested. And fourth, Myles Garrett's presence in June changes the energy of the entire facility. Garrett's investment in the direction of this franchise is not a neutral variable. When the most respected player in that building arrives and the real work begins, the organizational temperature changes in ways that quiet spring source reports cannot fully capture. OTAs are not padded practices. They are not preseason games. They are not the full competitive evaluation that training camp and preseason football will provide. But they are significantly more real than what has been generating the current narrative. And the football that happens in those sessions will start providing evidence that is considerably harder to spin than source claims about no-contact spring work. Here is where everything lands when it gets pulled together honestly. LeSean McCoy's source claim is real enough in its origin and delivery to deserve serious consideration rather than dismissal. It likely reflects genuine internal Cleveland information coming through a legitimate player connection. It should not be ignored just because it is uncomfortable for people who want Shedeur to win. But it comes with qualifiers that matter enormously. No pads, no contact, no competitive evaluation environment, no evidence from actual football that the reported performance translates when the pressure is real. And it comes from a man who said himself he did not believe it at first, and who acknowledged clearly that the last time Watson played meaningful football, the picture looked considerably different than what the spring reports are describing. The media reaction to McCoy's comments is running exactly the pattern G. Bush identified weeks before it started. The same mechanism that elevated Gabriel as an untouched tool, that spent months manufacturing Watson-positive narratives before a single significant rep had been taken. That declares starters based on OTA impressions before OTAs have even begun. That machine is operating on schedule, and anyone paying attention to the pattern, rather than just the individual news cycle, can see it clearly. Shedeur Sanders is not worried about source reports from no-contact spring work. He is in those meetings. He is doing the preparation. He is building chemistry with the receivers who were acquired specifically because their skill sets complement what he does. He is learning the system from a coaching staff that has consistently communicated organizational investment in his development, regardless of what the public language carefully avoids confirming. Competition is coming, real competition, with pads, with live bullets, with the kind of evaluation environment that produces honest answers rather than spring impressions. OTAs start tomorrow. And based on everything the organizational behavior has communicated through every resource decision made over the past several months, based on every piece of infrastructure built around a specific quarterback's strengths, based on every coaching investment and system design choice that points toward one player. The competition that starts tomorrow is the one that decides whether the decision Cleveland already appears to have made internally gets confirmed officially, or gets redirected by football evidence that nobody expected. The narrative machine will keep running. The source claims will keep circulating. The same voices that have been wrong about this situation repeatedly will keep generating content about it regardless of what the evidence shows. But the football starts now, and the football does not care about any of that. Do you think Watson can actually take this job, or does Shedeur win it when the live bullets start flying? Drop your take below. Subscribe and turn on notifications. OTAs start tomorrow, and we are covering every development.